So welcome all, and thank you Mikko for the amazing warming up, and Johanna for the invitation. My name is Nina Jatuli, and I am talking about my creative journey, which has now taken more than 20 years, and some of my observations on the way also regarding our theme, growth. I'll have to say I was very skeptical when I first heard this theme, because, well, growth, especially in Finland, is very much like, it's very often viewed through economic growth. And everybody's heard about the startup companies which are making millions of sales, and unless you are like economically extremely profitable, it is a bit more undervalued here. But that's also something that in a creative field, we don't have the metrics how we are actually able to somehow measure growth in a creative way. There are ways that we can somehow try to measure the growth in creative, but it's never through actually the creative process or the creation itself. It's mostly value-based, it might be time-based, or efficiency-based, which are not ever reflected truly to the creative side of things. Many times when the metrics start to grow, then the creative starts actually to decline, which is unfortunate, but that's something that happens many and most of the times. And also, since I've been working in a very different sort of environments, in very traditional companies, in startup companies, in my own company, how growth is actually managed has varied significantly. Also, what's expected as the growth potential has varied very significantly, depending on the ecosystem that I've been working with. But yeah, what is growth? That's a very good question, and is it something that everybody needs and must chase? That's also the underlining question here, whether or not some sort of status quo can be achieved so that the economic growth is, for instance, something that we are not so passionately driving towards, but we can actually also start to evaluating our creative growth in a measurement in a way that we don't need to so much care about the economics. Of course, it's always nice to have a place to live, and I'm not saying that money is bad, but somehow the eternal chase of higher result in financial ways is unsustainable, as we've seen in the rise and decline of our economics every now and then. I started my creative journey back in 2003, well, earlier already, but 2006 I got my bachelor degree, and I very fastly joined as a freelancer designer to Nanso, which is a very traditional Finnish apparel company. So traditional that there was actually a CEO office with this huge oak desk where there is important people, and the CEO was very highly regarded, and the hierarchy was very in a traditional way and in a traditional company. When I joined as a very aspiring young designer, I came up with interesting development issues there. For instance, designers were always in that company, they were kind of one-man army. They gave the design direction to the seamstresses and to the factory, and somehow many times there was we can't do that. And I was like, we're doing all this work and nothing can be done. Yeah, but it cannot be done. I was like, well, instead of doing all this work, why don't we invite the factory people, the head of the factory, to tell me how I need to change this vision so that it's producible, because we were doing a lot of work that was never being produced because we make the pattern and then something happened and nothing could be done. But this was the way how they operated. It was very hierarchy based, so basically designer told the pattern maker who told the factory, and there was this broken line, and people were not involved in their own craft and in their own facilities that they actually knew the best. So after a very, very like tedious like negotiations that like I was begging like, could we get the head seamstress over to the first meetings that were taking place, that we were making the first designs, and then we finally got them there. And because they were the experts in their field, they knew the machinery, how they were operating, suddenly things started operating a lot better. So we were actually installing new procedures to a very old school ways of working. But this was because it was a very traditional place. It was like, it's not, this is how, not, usually this is not made like this here. It's like, oh, well, okay, but this is kind of pointless. We're doing a lot of unnecessary work. And because it was a very old school factory, well, the hierarchy was there and we needed somehow to break it. And we made some success about that, like, because we were finally getting people who are actually expert in their fields to join our expertise. And then a happy like collaboration happened. Then came the crash of 2008. So everybody knows that world economics went a bit belly down at the point, and then the freelance designers we were like no longer applied there because everybody else was also getting let go. And then I decided to go back to Aalto to do my master's. And I started my company at the same time around 2010. I had already had my VAT number because I was wanting to sell my designs, and that's the only vehicle you can sell things outside is that you need a VAT number so you can be able to bill things. I did not start my company out of the thinking I'm going to be the next H&M, let's make some stuff. I made it purely for the joy of making. I made evening gowns. Like the sparklier, the crazier, the more sculptural, the better. But as I graduated, finally, I even prolonged my graduation a bit because the 2008 crash was a very hard hit for the economy. So at 2010, 11, I was like, I have a few options. It's either to take a huge bank loan and start my own business, or find some sort of job to balance out my student loan and all the other nice things that everybody has when they graduate from the university. And then out of the weirdest place, I got a message through Facebook Messenger. And my friend of a friend from Aalto University actually messaged me like, hey, this is gonna sound really weird. My friend was asking for an apparel designer for a gaming company, and you came to mind. Can I give you your details? Sure. At this point, my credit card was tapped out, and some sort of financial thing was evidently needed quietly. And then sooner, I got an interview, and suddenly I was like, yeah, this is a gaming company. What I'm going to do there as an apparel, because they were looking for an apparel designer. I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds interesting. I've always been into games. And sure enough, I was hired to Rovio for licensing department to do apparel for the Angry Birds brand. The weird thing is that not many places had actually done licensing in a scale that Rovio was actually making it. So we had absolutely no idea what we were doing. This was at the peak when the Angry Birds brand actually just started skyrocketing. There was 3 of us. We had no material. Everybody, the entire world was asking, can we work with you? Can we make products? And we were like, sure. Okay, we need some sort of deals, and then we need a manual, and what else? And the entire system for a good year was operating through Gmail, as the entire operational base was through email, with huge amounts of deals, and we were reviewing different sort of designs, and then we were approving or developing them and giving information to our clients. It was absolute chaos. I remember the first time I was sent abroad to open a new market. I was luckily not in the business side, but in the creative side. I was shipped off to Mexico after being employed for 1.5 months without absolutely no material. I got this few characters here and there from the game side and some from somewhere else, and I was in the plane doing this creative handbook and my presentation. And I had just heard that there was like 75 people there with deals covering from anywhere from 100,000 to like millions. And I'm going there like, damn, this is going to be interesting. But that was also a time for personal growth, because I had no idea that like, well, suddenly I'm there, I'll need to give a speech to all of those people, and there's a simultaneous translator there translating, and I'm explaining the entire brand without actually, like, basically winging it. So it was a very interesting period. Then, of course, the procedures evolved, we evolved, and as I started my design journey there as an apparel designer, that's always something that happens when you go actually to a commercial position. It's always passions versus paycheck, which is, one needs money, but also it needs to be creatively interesting. But what also happens a lot of the times, especially in a very like commercial places, is you start, for instance, I started as a designer. As I grew on my creative career, my job title and my job actually started to shift. Instead, I started so that I was doing patterns, and I was actually like playing with different themes, colors, making all sorts of seasonal things. But as I progressed in my career, the more pay and the more like titles I got, the less the creative side started to going. And that was something that I started noticing, like I'm sitting in a lot of meetings and I'm starting to give direction to other people. And like, I personally like having my hands in the mud. I really enjoy still drawing and doing patterns and all the creative aspects. But the higher the role got, the lower the creative got. So suddenly I was in a place that I was actually all about meetings and emails and no of the actual creative thing that I was actually first hired there to do. But this happens a lot also for different types of roles. For instance, we had beautiful, like amazing game designers who were doing amazing game sets and all sorts of coders. And the higher they get, as well as the higher we got in the design thing, suddenly, even though you're at your peak of your like professional thing, suddenly you become, and you are expected to manage people. Even though the first thing that you've been actually like managing has been bits or apparel or design direction, suddenly you have a team. Here are your 10 people. Out of nowhere, you are supposed to become a people person and an HR expert. I remember vividly the day that I was actually promoted to manager. My lovely one of the head of the departments, we were having a toast there, and she gave me a warm hug and whispered into my ear, "Welcome shoveling shit." Like, oh, thank you. And yeah, it's a completely different sort of role then. So the creative got even less. So I had to point like people who were now doing the creative for me, because I was shifting to managing people. And this is also something that I think in the work, like in general, in our work communities, need to actually start like really like evaluating more. Is it actually very beneficial that everybody is like the highest promotion that they're getting is suddenly you're managing people? If you are really good at managing bits, stay managing bits. Or if you're really good at art direction, stay there. Don't give them people. They don't necessarily like people. And then it's just really uncomfortable for everybody. But for some reason, this is something that every time happens. And I encourage everybody who is in a commercial field or in a place that they can decide things, please don't do this to people. This was a very growing experience for me as a person also, because I like to say that I'm like a Ferrari. I go from 0 to 100 less than 6 seconds. And I had to learn a lot about patience, because suddenly there were people who I was supposed to guide and, of course, mediate their fights and like tell people why you are getting on a job trip and why you're not getting on a job trip and why you are getting the project that everybody wants and not you, even though then you are telling that she's my friend, and all sorts of fun things. But yeah, as I got to the manager position, things got even more interesting. So basically my calendar was just filled with meetings, and then happened always that the fantastic thing is that suddenly your inbox completely like explodes, and you are started to be CC'd into everything, so that people are validating their projects or their ideas through you. So I call them, there were the emails with the C of CCs, because there was just everybody lifted there. Okay, inbox 20,100 emails. It's like, okay, somebody's like, yeah, I just found one spot from your calendar. Yeah, that was one lunch break. Thank you. And as I started, we started, of course, Rovio had a skyrocketing start. It was full hockey stick. Suddenly everybody wanted them. But what goes up, without zero hierarchy. When I joined, there was 250 people. A year later, there was 550 people. They were hiring one person a day. The HR department was 5 people. So obviously, not every personal hire was not necessarily the best one because of the sheer volume. And also they were growing so rapidly that unlike Nansa, who had a very, very strict, very conservative way of working and trying to grow that way, this was a complete opposite. It was almost like you put money and then kids, and it's a playground, and close the doors, have fun. Let's see what happens. Let's build the most beautiful sandcastle you can. And as I was there for quite some time, and then became the downhill. What goes up must go down. This is also true in the startup world very often. And I decided when we started having these YT things, I looked at our roadmap, I was like, oh no, this rat is actually going to jump ship now. That I had at the same time worked my own business also at the side all the time. But I had been doing it on my vacation, in evenings, I had literally been burning candle from both ends and from the middle. And my own brand had actually grown to the place where it couldn't grow with that much effort. If you do it after a 50-hour work week, you're not going to be able to invest a lot mental capacity to it. And then it was time to ponder whether or not I actually close it, because it was going to need the nurture, or do I actually jump ship and just invest everything in it? And then at the end it was which decision I'm gonna regret when I'm in my rocking chair as an old woman is we are out. So I left Rovio and I started going to my entire, I put all my eggs in one basket, decided to go full on with my own brand. But being a scattermind as I am, I like exploring many things always. So it's not something that I'm not very focused. I'm just oh, here's something. And it's ever growing and ever evolving thing that I like to do, and also how I try to keep things interesting also for myself, and how I want to explore new ways of creativity. So I actually enjoy doing multiple different things. Getting the focus is always, that's one of my problems in my creative growth. is that I at sometimes should really focus more, but then again I think that it might also restrict, because whenever I've ended up doing really weird projects. But always, even though some of them are been more successful than others, many have them really crazy, but always there has been a very interesting learnings from them. And I think that one of the key learnings always is, for me at least, is I know what I want, I like doing this, but the key learning is this is at least not how it should be done, and this is definitely not the thing that I want to do. So I think that that's something that narrows down my path a lot, but it requires usually the thing that in Finnish we call it kantapääopisto. So we take we make things I commit to a project, I finish it, but doing that, I know that never again. But that's how you also learn very efficiently. At least, okay, if I have to do this project again, I would do it differently, or I would do it in this way instead of this. Then we go into the interesting part, which is creative entrepreneurship and business versus creative freedom. Because, of course, money is unfortunately a must for everybody. Without money, unless you're lucky enough that somebody has your business sugar daddy kind of situation, then you're all good. But usually we have two exchangeables. One is time, and one is money, or other sorts of resources. But usually it's time and money. Weirdly enough, you never seem to have both of them at the same time. You either have money, but you have no time. So basically you're working a second job, you get the money, but you don't have the time for your passion project or your creativity. When you have the time for your creativity, usually not so much of the money. So it's always a balance between these two. It's how do we get the perfect balance that you would have some money and some of the creativity, and so that the scale is not tipped completely, which is something that very often actually unfortunately happens. And as I am in a business of I make garments, accessories, but currently I'm working more on daily wear. So basically it's not unique design. It's not unique pieces. It's manufactured pieces ranging from size 34 to 46. I need to also evaluate my design and my design thinking through the needs of the customer, which is of course then limiting my creative freedom in a different sort of way, because I have to reflect my creation through also the economic scope of what actually is selling, because I can do gazillion t-shirts, but if nobody wants them, then I'm just stuck there with my t-shirts. But this is the problem also with creative business. How to make it business and still keep the inherent creation and the creativity that you do with it. But this is something actually that happens also as we talked about the growth of your career in a commercial place, the higher the role and the paycheck goes and the lower the creation goes. This is something that happens also, especially if you don't have a team. The moment you start making a bit more money, suddenly the admin steps in. So you are doing a lot more of the things that you did not start the company for. You are packing web shop orders, you are making web shop things, you are writing newsletters, you are doing all sorts of other things than actually creating. And the higher, again, the more money you get, or more money you make, more of the admin actually starts working. And more of the admin is actually required. And this is, again, a game of balance of how are we going to get this thing operational so that it's still interesting for me, because I started the company out of sheer joy of creating. And I actually, I recently started evaluating, of course, we had COVID, which was unfortunate. My company was actually in a very good growth path just prior COVID. Then COVID hit, and it was a struggle for everybody. Everybody knows that. It was like, but for all the commercial goods, and especially we had a brick and mortar store, which was ordered to be closed. The rent was still going on. And we jumped through all sorts of hoops and trying to figure out how can we pay the rent and how can we pay the seamstresses. And it was a hassle. And because of the way that my company was like operational at the time, I was not eligible for any of the benefits that or any of the support systems that the city was or the government was providing. But then came the last pieces, like 2021, where the when everybody had been dropping dramatically, and the government actually issued one of these care packages that if your business is down 30%, you can get this benefit. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm down 27%. And I was like, talking to my accountant, I was like, do you have any ideas? Like, have I missed something that can be deducted? And she's like, the only thing that comes to my mind is aggravated tax fraud, but that's worth 2 years of jail time, so let's try to skip that. It's like, okay, then let's try something else. And we did all sorts of not semi-crowd sourcing things, and I started workshops and everything that we could just get the bits and pieces together so that we could still stay operational and open. But that, of course, created more of the admin. And we've been playing catch-up, or I've been playing catch-up ever since. And I actually, beginning of this year, I started to evaluate again the thing, what I actually want to do. I had been shifted really, really heavily to the more of the commercial apparel side, and I was really missing the actual craft of creating garments by my hand. I make evening gowns, draping them like singular pieces. That's what I started, and that's something that I've realized that I was missing a lot. And I started actually calculating my time. What I'm doing every day. And the results were a bit shocking because it was admin again. It was meetings. It was telling the companies, the factories what to do. It was web shop. It was all sorts of things that I didn't start the business for that. And then I actually started checking out. I was looking for something from my computer because there's a hierarchy there based on years. And I was starting to look at, okay, I'm looking at for the sketches for this and this year. I was like, there are very few. There are even fewer the further we go. So that the creation time periods and the creation amounts had dramatically decreased the more that we were I was operating more towards business side. So I actually am now in the midst of repivoting my entire business so that I am trying to reclaim my creative side in a way that might need actually be I need to take quite a few steps back so that I can find again more of the passion for the thing that I'm doing. I mean, I love my job, but there's still the essence there I realized I was really missing. So I actually need to backtrack now quite a lot. It might even be that I need to give up my studio space. I'm not sure, because I have still a brick and mortar shop, which everybody knows that are struggling, but because the costs are big, that means I need to get the commercial value to stay up so that I can pay the normal running costs. But I'm hoping that's not going to happen, but it might. But I actually started evaluating everything in a very critical way of actually, I almost did a school schedule for myself. So that this time I'll do admin here, web things here, and this time is for just shits and giggles. I can do whatever I want on Monday evenings. From 12 to 5 on a Monday, it's going to be my creative time. If I want to do crafts, if I want to do gowns, if I want to do something that it's like inherently coming out from me and like trying to recapture like the joy of doing things with my hands and like give form to things, which is like what I want to do. So that I'm trying to like alleviate the pressure of actually getting commercial sustainability in a way, but I decided to do a schedule for myself to actually regain my creative like process and also regain the time, almost like reclaiming the time for myself and for my creativity. But that's also something that I think that one should never be afraid to do, is just to evaluate the things, whether or not is that something that you actually want to do. Like, is this my heart project? Is this actually the thing that I want to do? Or do I need to make changes? And the changes can be dramatic, but one, like, it's imperative that one does them, because the further you are in the cycle that you realize that this is not exactly the thing that you want to do, the more you get a bit fed up with things, but also the more tired your mind gets. So I encourage everybody to play, to explore, to do different things, and also to like try courageously different things. I've found creation and like creativity in the weirdest of places always. The weirdest like projects that have nothing to do with the things that I've done, or the weirdest new hobbies, but just creatively and like courageously trying new things and get the key learnings from there. And like, I always get really inspired by like people doing passionately things, and also for me trying to find new creative outlets. Many of them are not by no means the best of any of them. Like, I've tried pottery and all sorts of like paintings and anything that gives you some sort of inherent like creative outlet. And then you can start again forming the way to think differently and also creatively, like regaining and regrouping your thinking. And my final word is stay curious, keep your kid inside and like just let it play every now and then. Try to allocate time for your own creativity without limitation. So not even so that it's on your field, but as long as it's like you give, creativity needs time. Without time, there is no option to explore, to make mistakes, because creativity is also about making mistakes and learning through there. And stay fearless. Never be afraid of doing things because somebody might think that you look foolish or you are going to fail. Biggest like successes have been made after failures, so that people have started and tried something, it's failed. They've started something and done something in another way, they might have succeeded. But there's always learnings in the failures always, and I think that as a society we are really afraid of failing. And we should fail more, stronger, and also let people know that what's happening, and so that everybody can learn from it, and also so that we stay fearless and we are not afraid to explore ourselves and each other.